Who was the first mighty man?
The first mighty man was Jeshobeam.
Oh yeah? Why do you say that?
Well, I guess he was the first of the three mighty men of David.
Ah, okay.
And
Who's
then,
not the first mighty man?
okay, who's the first mighty man?
He is Nimrod.
Nimrod, the mighty the mighty hunter.
Yeah. It's interesting, of course, First Chronicles now is where we're at, the 13th book of the Bible, right?
Right.
And these first few chapters are quite the slog. You really you tread your way through the depths on this one.
Yep.
If you're trying to read it through word by word. But it's not actually that bad. It is interesting. You just have to be in the right frame of mind for it to be interesting, right?
Right. And I actually ran through the first 4 chapters with hardly anything that highlighted.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it starts with Adam and it goes to Abraham, to Jacob, which, I mean, that's a quick genealogy, right? Abraham to Jacob.
Right.
Because it's just Isaac's in between them. But then it has all these other people, right? All the way down to David. And that's what First Chronicles is ultimately about, is
right.
What did David do and who did he appoint to do things? Mostly, who did he appoint to do things?
Yeah. And First Chronicles is not about the chronicles of the kings of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's the chronicles of the king of Judah. That is David. So, you got anything before chapter chapter 4?
I mean, I think there are some things that I noticed. There are a bunch of names, obviously.
A bunch of names.
But these names are interesting to me because...
You're crazy.
Because I'm crazy, yeah. I mean, okay, a lot of these names have meanings, and yeah, I guess one thing that's interesting to me is I don't know how many of these people were named before that word had a meaning, because I think that's a funny idea. You know, my name's Matthew, and now there's division in the land when I'm around, and so everyone knows that Matthew means division.
Right.
Like, you know, that's the story of Peleg. You know, it has little notes about some of these people. You know, Peleg, who was named so because of the division in the land. Or, I don't know, just any of these people. Jacob, who had his name changed to Israel. But one thing I noticed is that a lot of these names are repeated, and a lot of them are... I mean, they thought it important enough to put it in the genealogy, but they're not the same important people that we see in other times. So there's an Obadiah, and as far as I understand, he's not the Obadiah who wrote the minor prophet Obadiah. And there's in chapter 2, verse 6, there's the sons of Zerah, which starts off with Zimri, Ethan, Heman, Calcol, and Dara, 5 in all. And all of these names show up later doing other things, and they're not these sons of Zerah. They're just other people named Zimri. Like, okay, the guy Zimri, he gets to be the leader of Israel for a short amount of time. And Jezebel even calls someone, "What are you, a Zimri?" There's like a weird thing that I noticed that, you know, she uses his name as an insult. Like,
right.
Like, what are you, a Donald Trump? I don't know. There's like a funny way that somebody's name is used as an insult, and it's like Donald is a name that's been around for forever, and
or more less politically, you're a Karen.
Yeah. Just in the same way that it's funny that names are used that way, or names have these meanings. And then, you know, I thought it was interesting. Nimrod is named as the first of the mighty men. That everyone before him was weak, I suppose. Or at least not counted as this big, strong, mighty man.
Right.
You know, they're just people. And Nimrod is counted as, you know, the first of the mighty men. I think, you know, and then we get into chapter 3 and 4, and these are the descendants of David. In the line of Judah, right? But, well, chapter 3 is the descendants of David, but then it goes back in time
Yep.
Here, let's name all the descendants of every tribe.
Yep. It bounces around quite a bit, and if you're not paying close attention, you'll get confused.
Yeah.
And even if you are paying close attention, you might get confused.
Yeah.
I think perhaps the most famous passage in First Chronicles is in chapter 4.
In chapter 4. Interesting.
Because there's a whole book written about verses 9 and 10 of chapter 4 in First Chronicles. It's called the Prayer of Jabez. And it was popularized a number of years ago. It's actually not a big book, but a popular radio speaker wrote a book about the Prayer of Jabez. And, people put it on their wall, and, here's the prayer. Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my border, that your hand might be with me, that you would keep me from harm, that it may not pain me. And so people prayed the prayer of Jabez. Kind of an interesting thing.
Jabez, which sounds like the Hebrew for pain. Just an interesting thing again. He's named after his mom felt like the childbirth was especially painful and gave him that name.
Yeah. Other verses in chapter 4 that I highlighted, 39 and 40. They went to the entrance of Gedor, even to the east side of the valley, to seek pasture for their flocks. They found rich and good pasture, and the land was broad and quiet and peaceful, for those who lived there formerly were Hamites. Just in the middle of this genealogy, and these people found nice pasture land.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting, these genealogies, so and so had these kids, and he had 4 sons, and they had a daughter, and
is that Ham the son of Noah?
I don't know.
Okay. Because it's interesting, the sons of Ham are Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. So, it seems like all of these lands around are Hamites, but...
Right. 520. They were, they're talking about, they make war, and they were helped against them and the Hagrites, and all who were with them were given into their hand, for they cried out to the Lord, to God in battle, and he answered their prayers because they trusted in him.
Yeah.
Just God reminding us that those who trust in me, those who trust in him, get their prayers answered.
Yeah, that brought me back to Hezekiah, who's, a king who no king before him or after him trusted in the Lord the same way. And then it's interesting. I think it's just always interesting to me. Verse 23, the members of the half tribe of Manasseh lived in the land. And just that this tribe of Manasseh is always split into 2 halves. The half that stayed across the Jordan and that stayed on one side of the Jordan, and the half that came across with the rest of Israel.
And verse 24, they list the mighty men of valor, famous men, heads of their fathers' households. And then 25, they acted treacherously against the God of their fathers and played the harlot after the gods of the peoples of the land.
Yeah.
Just this reminder that as much as God blesses those who trust in him, we as people have a tendency to turn our backs on God.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. These people are described as mighty warriors, famous men, and I've never heard of any of them.
Well, yeah, you don't run in the same circles.
Yeah, I guess so. Turns out after a couple thousand years, you're not so famous.
Right. So chapter 6 talks about the line of Levi, and a verse that I thought was interesting is that these were those whom David appointed over the service of song in the house of the Lord. So there's going to be a bunch of people who are musicians who are going to be named here, and quite a number of them actually.
Yeah. I thought it's interesting Moses is not named here. He's, of the tribe of Levi. But, for whatever reason, his mom is named, or his dad is named, rather, Amram. But he's not named. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Moses and Aaron are like these big people.
Verse 3?
Oh, verse 3. I was looking at
That's
verse
that's one of
18.
the verses that Matthew skipped reading through these.
Well, you know what? I noticed in verse 18 his dad's name Amram, the sons of Kohath, Amram, Ishar, Hebron. And I just thought, oh, Moses is supposed to be Amram's son.
Right, but the sons of Kohath,
Yeah.
those are his uncles, Ishar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Right?
Yeah. I just got confused.
Yeah, it's easy to do. Like I said, this is a section where it's very easy because you think, oh, didn't we see this already? And so don't worry about it. Enjoy reading it just for the fun of all the names. Imagine yourself writing a sci-fi story and placing all these names in it. Into chapter 7, I push us to verse 24. Because every time, it seems like when I notice that women are doing something, it catches my eye. His daughter was Shirah, who built Lower and Upper Beth Horon, also Uzan Shirah. Mm-hmm. So here's this woman who builds a couple towns.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. We think that they don't get any recognition, but. Especially given the societal norms of the time, the fact that there are so many women in Scripture that are influential is, I think, is pretty significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought, I don't know which verse it is, but Zelophehad, his daughters are mentioned again.
Yep.
They of course previously had asked Moses, like, hey, what's the deal? Like, our dad didn't have sons,
right? But
we still want to inherit land. Can we do that? And I just thought it's interesting that they were mentioned, here again in First Chronicles, that Zelophehad had daughters and, was actually still granted an inheritance.
That's, by the way, that's verse 15 of chapter 7. Then we go on to chapter 8, and this is more genealogy, and I noted verse 33. Ner became the father of Kish, and Kish became the father of Saul, and Saul became the father of Jonathan, and a bunch of people. You know who's missing from there? Jonathan's son.
Oh, yeah. Mephibosheth?
Yeah, Mephibosheth.
He's not very good at speaking Hebrew, for sure.
And this comes up again later, and he also is not named the next time that it talks about Saul and Jonathan.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. Saul is in this line of Benjamin, from this tribe of Benjamin, and I was just noticing a lot of the mighty men are from the tribe of Benjamin.
That is true.
That Benjamin, in whatever way, this tribe was building up mighty warriors. And, maybe that's why they were able to have this first king in Saul. But, Saul is able to be evil enough to turn that away, I guess.
Yep. So chapter 9 begins, so all Israel was enrolled by genealogies, and behold, they are written in the book of the Kings of Israel.
Yeah.
Instead of the book of Chronicles, we're in the book of Chronicles. Mm-hmm. Did you notice later on there's a couple of other books, three other books mentioned that we don't have any recollection of?
Yeah, I thought it's interesting that, before we were saying, like, oh, all these kings are mentioned, and then at the end it says, like, if you want to read more about it, read about it in Chronicles. And now in Chronicles, it's, leading us back. If you want to read more about this, go read in Kings. And it's like, okay, well, I don't understand, these are contemporary authors or...
And the other thing is that it's quite possible that in First and Second Kings, when it referred to the book of Chronicles, it's not referring to First and Second Chronicles of Scripture.
Right.
That there's a chronicle, the Chronicles of the acts of this king as a separate book.
Yeah.
So
especially, in a lot of this First Chronicles, we see David is setting up people to be recorders or chiefs of different areas. So it could be that all of these future kings are also setting up their own recorders and everyone's writing their own stuff. It wouldn't be unlikely.
Right. So now we finish out chapter 9 and chapter 10. Saul dies, and along with his sons. In chapter 11, David is king.
I liked the end of chapter 10. Well, I didn't like it because it's a sad thing, right? But it ends, Saul died for his breach of faith. He broke faith with the Lord in that he did not keep the command of the Lord, and he also consulted a medium, seeking guidance. He did not seek guidance from the Lord. Therefore, the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, the son of Jesse. I just, before I had noticed that David, his first instinct in all situations was, let's go ask God.
Right.
And that's the same thing we commented on for Josiah and Hezekiah, that the good kings, the people who are touted as the kings who followed the word of the Lord, they were able to do that because their first instinct in any situation was, maybe let's go ask. Let's go see what God actually wants, and then we can do that.
Chapter 11 talks about David's mighty men. And I actually read chapter 11 3 times.
Yeah.
To try to find out who the third mighty man, the third of his, because it talked about he had 3 primary guys. This is I think that's one. Yeah.
Yeah, he had 3 mighty men, and then it lists off these not 3 mighty men.
It lists 2 of them. It lists 2 of them. Jashobeam and Eleazar, the son of Dodo. And then it doesn't list a third one. I read that and I said, it's got to be there. It's got to be there. And maybe I was a little tired when I was reading it, but I didn't find who the third mighty man of David was.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it lists off other people and their names and their deeds, and then it says, but he wasn't as good as the 3 mighty men.
Yep.
And so each time you're thinking, oh, is this going to be the third mighty man?
Yep.
And nope, he wasn't as good. He was renowned among the 30, but did not attain to the 3.
And did were the 3 mighty men the ones that went to Bethlehem and drew water?
I believe so. That's my understanding.
It wasn't really all that clear to me, but it just say, so the 3 broke through. And one of them goes down in history as no name.
Yeah. And the other 2, you don't know their names. So, I mean, you do because you just read it. But, ask any person on the street.
Yeah.
Probably ask any Israelite on the street. You go to Israel and ask, hey, who are the 3 mighty men? They wouldn't be able to tell you.
Right. They'd go, 3 mighty men? Could that be Nimrod?
Yeah, maybe.
So the rest of First Chronicles is all about King David. And one of the things I noted in this is that it is a history favorable to David.
Yeah.
That missing from this account of David are the bad events that happened in his reign.
Yeah.
You don't see anything about Bathsheba. It was just he has a son Solomon. And I thought that was interesting that this is a positive view of King David. In chapter 12, verse 14, these of the sons of Gad were captains of the army. He was at least equal to 100, and the greatest to 1,000.
Yeah. I mean, that's confusing language, the way yours says. Mine says the least was a match for 100 men, and the greatest a match for 1,000.
Right.
Just that. And I thought that was interesting, too, that these people are, said to be, oh, you have 1,000 people come and attack them, and, he'll win the battle.
Yep. And interspersed in here, so there's a few references to really big people, like in chapter 11, 23, there's a man of great stature, 5 cubits tall. His hand was a spear like a weaver's beam. Oh, in his hand was a spear like a weaver's beam. And there was another one, I don't remember where it was, that had 24 fingers and toes.
Yeah.
6 fingers and 6 toes on each hand and each foot.
Yeah. And those people had been mentioned before in 2 Samuel, right?
Yep.
So, nothing's surprising or new if you've been reading through.
Right.
You're like, oh yeah, I remember the mighty men. Yeah, I want to hear more about them. Let me see what they did. And
that's something that if you're reading along and you're reading in the whole book in one sitting and following it as we have. So we've been doing this about 2 weeks, and what you notice is that I recognize this story, and and if you were really into it, you could go back and compare how closely they follow each other. But it's just a nice refresher that these are the things that happened for David.
Yeah.
Chapter 12:32. I kind of liked what they said of the sons of Issachar, men who understood the times, with knowledge of what Israel should do. Their chiefs were 200, and their kinsmen were all at their command. The people who understood the times.
Yeah.
That's just it's a moniker that I wouldn't mind.
I liked Zebulun's, the people of Zebulun, who came equipped for battle to help David with singleness of purpose.
Yeah.
I like that.
The New American Standard says undivided heart.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because the way that you feel about Issachar, that's how I feel about Zebulun. I want to be described as a man of who follows someone with singleness of purpose.
Yeah.
With undivided heart, I followed God. That's what I would want someone to say about me.
And let's see, chapter 13, we have the recounting of the transportation of the ark, and Uzzah touching the ark and dying, and David being afraid of the ark, and also Obed-Edom being blessed in those 3 months that the ark is there.
I thought it was interesting just that this accounts it as 3 months also.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes it does say some different numbers.
Right.
Or sometimes it could be, especially with months, it's like, I'm not going to be upset if one book says 3 months and one book says 5 months, because those are so, similar amounts of time.
Yeah.
When you consider David was reigning for 40 years, what is 2 months to 40 years? I don't know.
So in chapter 14, it starts off that David's family is enlarged. He's having lots of kids.
Yeah.
And then there's battling the Philistines again. And it ends with this. David did just as God commanded him. They struck down the army of the Philistines. And then the fame of David went out into all the lands, and the Lord brought fear of him on all the nations. This is because David did what was right in the eyes of God.
Yeah. I thought the names of David's sons were interesting because Shemua I had heard of before. I guess just because he's the firstborn, right? But most of these other ones, I would say I wouldn't be able to name the sons of David at all.
And notice missing there is Absalom.
Yeah.
Which goes back to this is a positive view of David's reign.
Yeah, and just the kingdom in general, that they would wipe Absalom out. I guess in that same way Moses asks to be blotted out from the book. Now Absalom was evil enough that he's blotted out, but Tamar is not.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting, just Elpalet is one of David's sons, but then Eliphalet, where these names are 2 letters added on. I'm just glad that me and my siblings aren't named in that sort of naming convention where there's just like a couple letters added on for the younger kid or something.
Although Andrew is just named Andrew, and you're named Andrew, Philip, Timothy, Matthew.
Yep.
You think about these names of in the First Chronicles. You think, how did the parents ever call those kids?
Yeah, and I just I like these. Elishua, Elpalet, Elishama, Eliphalet. I like those names because I just know that they used that Eli or El as a preposition for meaning God. And so I don't know what these names mean, but you know that David, when he was naming them, he was thinking, like, let's honor God with this.
Right. Right.
And I think it's interesting. Solomon is always called Solomon.
Yeah.
Even though we read that Nathan, the prophet, called him Jedediah.
Yep.
And it says, like, Nathan and the Lord called him Jedediah.
Right. And yet he's always called Solomon.
Yeah.
So, chapter 15, David moves the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. And guess who gets upset again? Because the scripture is consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Michal is, unhappy with the way David treated it. And also I noticed that I think was missing in First Kings when David brought the ark was how much singing there was.
Yeah.
And here they make a note of all the singers and the
Mm-hmm.
musicians who are accompanying them, and I just thought that was kind of cool because we have some good musicians in our house.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of talk about music in First Chronicles in general, I noticed. And I thought that was interesting because even when they do bring in the ark, the first time we read it, it says that they stopped every sixth step to sacrifice a bull, sing a song, David's singing and dancing and celebrating. So you can extrapolate that there's definitely music, but
it's more than just David.
Yeah.
And that was it wasn't specifically stated earlier, but it was, you kind of got this idea that there's David singing by himself, and no, there's a whole choir.
Yeah, it says all Israel brought up the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord with shouting to the sound of horns, trumpets, cymbals. Then they made loud music on harps and lyres. And I don't know if you've ever tried to play a harp or a lyre. They're not loud instruments naturally. And so if you're playing them loud, you're playing them with a lot of vigor, and also probably there's a lot of them around.
Right.
So,
and almost certainly the harps of the Old Testament of this text were not the type of harps we see today.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been a nose harp. No.
Yeah. So then in 16 we have David's Song of Thanks.
Right.
Which I just think, again, David is a wonderful poet, or at least it's translated wonderfully.
Right. And I read through that and I thought that's pretty cool. I didn't think, man, this is a verse I want to bring up and say, let's talk about this verse.
I just thought it was interesting that on that day David first appointed that Thanksgiving to be sung to the Lord by Asaph and his brothers. Asaph is this guy, he's committed as this court musician, I guess.
Yep. And by the way, he's also the author of some of the book of Psalms, some of the Psalms.
And so he says, "Oh, give thanks. Give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name." But then later it says, it seems like the song ends, and then David says, "Say also, save us, O God of our salvation, and gather and deliver us from among the nations, that we may give thanks to your holy name and glory in your praise. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting." I liked the idea that there are two things to say. Give thanks. Of course, give thanks, but also ask to be saved.
Yeah. Yep.
And then also with some of these other stories, it says, as a footnote, and in my Bible it says, David had victory over these enemies. David had victory over all the nations. And then as a footnote it says, you could also read this as David was saved by God from these enemies. And I just liked that David isn't forgetting that. David's writing his own footnote. And also, save us, O God.
So chapter 17, God's covenant with David. He's going to continue to honor his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and there's going to continue to be a ruler in David's name. And David responds and says, "Who am I, O Lord? What is my house that you have brought me this far?" There's that understanding that he's only where he is because God put him there.
Yeah.
So now, I actually then get into chapter 18. David's kingdom is strengthened. He's solidifying his rule. And verse 14, David ruled over all of Israel, and he administered justice and righteousness for all his people. That's not a bad epitaph.
Yeah.
Administered justice and righteousness. Okay,
I don't
so
have anything to add. I mean, there was another verse where David says, but I couldn't find it. But David says that we're a people without hope on this land. But I think that might be later.
Okay, so then we get to chapter 19, and David sends messengers to Nahash, the son of Nahash the king, and they treat them poorly. And David wants to honor them, but they think that David's coming to spy out the land to conquer them. Mm-hmm. And because they don't honor him, guess what David does?
Yeah, he defeats them.
He defeats them. Then you have Ammon and Aram defeated, and then we finish out chapter 19 with another recounting of the many people that David was able to conquer. Mm-hmm. And then come to chapter 20, and we have more war with the Philistine giants. I think this is the chapter where, verse 6.
They struck down Lachmi, the brother of Goliath, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was again war at Gath. Let it not be told in Gath.
Yeah.
And there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot.
Yeah. So these were freaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seems like it's saying like he had 6 fingers and 6 toes because his hands were so big they needed the extra finger.
Yeah.
His body was so big he needed the extra toe to keep him stable standing up. I thought verse 1 of 21 was very interesting.
Very interesting.
Because it says, I don't know what it says in your Bible, but in mine it says, then Satan stood against Israel and incited David to number Israel.
Yep, exactly. Satan stood up against Israel and moved David to number Israel.
Yeah. And when I read this, I flipped back to 2 Samuel because I wanted to know, what is this? Satan is doing this? And in 2 Samuel it says, the Lord's anger was incited against Israel, and he incited David against the people of Israel to number them.
Interesting. You shouldn't remember stuff like that. Well, yeah. I think this is the first time in these 13 books that Satan has been identified as Satan, except for potentially in the creation story.
Yeah, in the garden, it seems like it's just called a serpent.
Yeah.
But now Satan stood against Israel.
Yeah.
So there's been some shift in the way that they're thinking about the spiritual world, that now instead of talking about God and the other dueling gods, now they're talking about God, some of these other gods, but also Satan.
Right.
Which is apparently something else.
So this chapter 21, David goes and counts, or has people sent out to count the number of people in Israel. But God was displeased, and he struck Israel, verse 7. Mm-hmm. And then David said, I'm in great distress. I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
And then he says, let me fall into the hand of the Lord, but do not let me fall into the hand of man. Basically saying, put the punishment on me rather than all the people.
Yeah.
And yet the Lord sends a pestilence. 70,000 people die. And this is where we come back to the floor of Ornan, the Jebusite, and the altar there.
Which I did also look because it's right next to. I flipped back for the other part, and then I realized this is saying Ornan, the Jebusite, and the other book was saying Arana. And I just thought it was interesting. At least for that one, it makes sense. It's probably not a different person. It's probably just you're writing a word down and you're writing it in a certain order, or they are using not the same letters as us, and so there are more sounds. and these sounds could be redistributed to be Ornan or Orana, is what I felt like.
Especially when you recognize that Hebrew was written with no vowels, and it was only later that they put what they call vowel points, and there's a certain amount of guesswork into where those vowels belong.
Yeah.
So then we get through David offering, and interesting, at the end of chapter 21, David could not go before it to inquire of God, for he was terrified by the sword of the angel of the Lord.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too.
Um,
And I thought just before that, in verse 29, the tabernacle of the Lord, which Moses had made in the wilderness, and the altar of burnt offering were at that time in the high place at Gibeon. We talked about the high places.
Yeah.
All throughout Second Kings, none of the kings are taking down the high places, right?
Right. So I move us into chapter 22. David is going to prepare for the building of the temple, which I thought was interesting. He's going to lay out all the plans. And he's going to store up all the supplies to do that.
Yeah, and even gather the people together to be able to do it.
Yep.
And I thought it was funny what he says in verse 5. For David said, Solomon my son is young and inexperienced, and the house that is to be built for the Lord must be exceedingly magnificent, of fame and glory throughout all the lands. I will therefore make preparation for it. And it's just, fun to me to imagine Solomon's the wisest man who ever lived, right? And now he's young and inexperienced.
Right. I like what David said to Solomon, verses 12 and following. Only the Lord give you discretion and understanding, and give you charge over Israel, so that you may keep the law of the Lord your God. Then you will prosper if you are careful to observe the statutes and the ordinances which the Lord commanded Moses. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear, nor be dismayed. David gives specific instruction to Solomon. Does he always follow it? No, but at least David does give that instruction to him.
Right.
Chapter 23 now, Solomon's going to reign. And that's because at the end of chapter 24, no, it's not at 24. When does David die?
I don't think David dies in this book. Does he?
Yeah.
David dies at the end of 29.
In the 29.
Which is the end of the last chapter.
Which is interesting, because it's in chapter 23 that Solomon reigns.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an interesting thing, because I noticed this later. It says he made Solomon king over Israel, and then later on it's going to say Solomon was anointed king
the second time.
Yeah. So this is the first time.
Mm-hmm. Which actually does line up, again with Second Kings.
Right.
Or First Kings, where Bathsheba comes to David and asks, hey, are you going to let your kid just say he's ruling the kingdom? You said it was going to be Solomon. And David says, oh yeah, we'll make it Solomon.
One thing in chapter 23, which I noted, and the Levites were numbered, this is verse 3, from 30 years old and upward. And then in verse 27, for by the last words of David, the sons of Levi were numbered from 20 years old and upwards.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
I don't know what that is. Some people are really troubled by those inconsistencies. Mm-hmm. I know enough about the translation of languages that it really doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah. And I think especially, it could very well be talking about different numberings. One numbering is numbering all the people who are going to be priests, and one number is numbering all the people who can help Aaron and his sons service the house of the Lord.
Yeah.
Potentially. But mostly it's just like those numbers don't really matter that much. In the grand scheme of things, they're not, it's not appointing that this isn't the divine word of God. It's just things are written weird.
Yeah.
And especially after thousands of years trying to read it, things get smudged and like, oh, okay, did they mean that? Or who knows?
And it also points to a dilemma that translators have, because they're looking at a text and they have a choice. Okay, it says 30 here and it says 20 here.
Mm-hmm.
Do we just correct it?
Right.
And there are a number of places when you read in Hebrew where you can see that whoever was copying this almost certainly made a mistake.
Yeah.
But we still are charged with trying to be faithful to the text that we have.
Mm-hmm. And that's why there are often these footnotes. In my Bible,
Yep.
there are all sorts of footnotes that say, in the Greek it says this, in the Hebrew it says this.
Yep.
And so we put down what the Greek says, or we put down what the Hebrew says, because we thought it made more sense. But
yeah. So in chapter 23, 24, we begin to get more of these genealogies. And
yeah, people are organized. I thought
Yeah.
this was interesting. The way people are organized is just kind of funny. Normally by groups of 12 or by groups of 24,
Right.
groups of 24,000.
so let's see. And then
In 25, he organizes the musicians, David and the chiefs of the service, also set apart for the service the sons of Asaph,
Yeah.
and of Heman and Jeduthun, who prophesied with lyres, with harps, and with cymbals. I was wondering, did yours use the word prophesy there in verse 1?
yes.
I just thought that was interesting to think of people prophesying with cymbals
Yeah.
and prophesying with harps and lyres. It makes more sense to me. Those are singable
Right.
musical instruments to me. But cymbals, I
They're
can't
just
imagine you prophesying with it. You kaboom, and thus says the Lord, crash.
That could very well be. So we blow through 24, 25, and into 26. We continue with a listing of the valiant men and the sons of all these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to verse 27. Where people have brought, there's been war, and they've brought the spoils in, and they dedicated part of the spoil won in battles to repair the house of the Lord.
Yeah.
Interesting that they say that, because the house of the Lord hasn't been built yet.
Yeah.
But they are putting aside resources to repair it when it inevitably needs to be repaired.
Yeah.
So chapter 27. We have more enumeration of the sons of Israel, and this go by groups of 12 and 24,000, and the various people that watched over Israel and took care of the details.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into chapter 28.
Well, in chapter 27, I have a pop quiz for you.
Okay.
Starting in verse 16, I'm going to read you. I'm not going to read it to you because it's confusing. Well, it's
Okay.
confusing. But I'll read you the names of the tribes of Israel, these leaders that are set. For the Reubenites, Eleazar. For Levi, Hashabiah. For Aaron, Zadok. For Judah, Elihu. For Issachar, Omri. For Zebulun, Ishmaiah. For Naphtali, Jeremoth. For the Ephraimites, Hoshea. For the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joel. For the other half-tribe of Manasseh in Gilead, Iddo. For Benjamin, Jasiel. For Dan, Azarel. These were the leaders of the tribes of Israel. What do you notice there? Maybe you don't notice it.
I noticed that you skipped Simeon.
Oh, I skipped Simeon. For the Simeonites, Shephatiah. Okay, so now what do you notice? I read this maybe 10 times. Because I was confused
Judah?
about this.
Judah missing?
Judah's in there. For Judah, Elihu.
So
But there are two missing.
Gad?
Yeah.
Gad and
Gad and his brother.
they're all brothers.
Yeah, but Gad and this one are brothers specifically from Zilpah.
I don't remember.
It's Asher. Gad and Asher are missing. And I thought that was interesting. First of all, because earlier I'd made a comment saying I don't know anyone who
From the
who
tribe
says
of
they're
Asher.
from the tribe of Asher. And I thought that was funny that now he provides leaders over the tribes of Israel, and he counts, confusingly, for Levi, Hashabiah, and then for Aaron, Zadok. Just that Levi and Aaron are separated in that way, just because Aaron is the priesthood, right? The line of Aaron is the priesthood, and so it's not just like these are the chief of the priest is Zadok. And then I just thought it was interesting, now Gad and Asher are taken away, and for whatever reason Zilpah gets scorned in this, and but it doesn't mean that we have not 12. We still have 12 tribes, because we have the two half tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim, which make up the three missing,
Right.
Joseph, Gad, and Asher. And I just thought that was an interesting thing, and I'm wondering if Gad and Asher are going to show up more. Before they were mentioned, you mentioned it, that Gad and Asher are mentioned as people that came to the aid of David.
Right.
So I don't know.
I am always amazed when we talk about stuff like this at how sharp your memory is for things like that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
So in chapter 28, David is going to talk to the people about the temple and basically remind them that the temple is going to be built by Solomon, and he encourages the people to help out. And in verse 9, he says, "As for you, my son Solomon, know the God of your father and serve him with a whole heart and a willing mind. For the Lord searches all hearts and understands every intent of the thoughts. If you seek him, he will let you find him. But if you forsake him, he will reject you."
Be careful now, for the Lord has chosen you
Yeah.
to build a house for the sanctuary. Be strong and do it.
Yeah. Be strong and courageous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Be careful. The Lord has chosen you. Be strong and do it.
Yep.
Just David knowing that it's a difficult task. David knowing that he was a strong man, right? David is a guy who, between Saul and David, people would say Saul killed thousands, David killed 10,000s. And that's part of the reason David's not allowed to build up this temple, that David was filling the land with blood. And so because of that, God says, you're not allowed to build the house, but your son is going to have time of rest. He's not filling the world with blood, because ultimately God doesn't want us to die, right?
Right.
He doesn't want death to be happening to anyone. And so he's letting Solomon build up this house. And I don't know, I just like David's wisdom in knowing that that to kill is a hard thing. And
Right.
it was hard for David.
And to lead is a hard thing.
And to not kill will be a hard thing for Solomon.
Right. So then it goes on and it details all the utensils in the getting ready for the temple. And David says to Solomon again, verse 20, "Be strong and courageous and act. Do not fear nor be dismayed, for the Lord my God is with you. He will not fail you nor forsake you until all the work of the service of the house of the Lord is finished." Continually, David challenging Solomon to be faithful and be courageous.
Yeah.
In chapter 29, they have the offerings of the temple and ultimately David's prayer.
Yeah. And I love this prayer. Just David says, "Blessed are you, O Lord." I love this blessing. And now we thank you, our God, and praise your glorious name. And then, "But who am I, and what is my people, that we should be able thus to offer willingly? For all things come from you, and of your own we have given you. For we are strangers before you, and sojourners, as all our fathers were. Our days on earth are like a shadow, and there is no abiding." I just like this idea from David that, first of all, everything's God's. And
Yep.
so if I'm giving something to God, it's already his. So it's like giving nothing. And he says, we're strangers and sojourners.
Yep.
And I love that idea that that's within the heart of Israel. for all time, right?
As part of that same prayer, he says, "Riches and honor come from you, and you rule over all. In your hand is power and might, and it lies in your hand to make great and to strengthen everyone."
Yeah.
It's all about God. As wonderful as David was in his reign, and as victorious as he was over the peoples around him, he comes back to, it's all about God.
Yeah.
Everything I have, like you, I loved where he said, "We're not really giving you anything. What we have has always been yours." And that's going to round out First Chronicles. At the end here, then
Solomon, they made Solomon the son of David the king the second time,
right,
and they anointed him as prince for the Lord, and Zadok as priest. And then David, of course, dies, and he reigns 40 years, 7 in Hebron and 33 in all of Israel.
Yeah.
And he died at a good age, full of days, riches, and honor. I just like that description of David, too, that he died at a good age, a good time to die. Right before everything goes terrible.
Well, no, I mean, Solomon's going to have his reign. It's going to be pretty sweet for Solomon.
Yeah. I was just joking.
Right, but I understand what you're saying. So that's First Chronicles. We're going to catch Second Chronicles tomorrow, and see where how much of it goes for Solomon and how much of it covers the other kings of Israel.
The other 18 kings of Israel, of Judah.
It's a little longer of a read, but that's okay. You can make it.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll talk to you again tomorrow.